Bonjour team and welcome to DayZ on PS5. Welcome to my technical series where I talk about some of the ins and outs of some of the bits and pieces of the game to the capacity that I know, and I don't claim to be an expert on anything or everything, but let's have a look at some of the basics involving cars and other vehicles. I have here a selection of vehicles. Starting over here with this lovely maroon, we have an Olga, we have an Ada, we have a Gunter, we have the truck, we have the Hummer, and we have the Sarka. Now, these are all the different kinds of vehicles that you can see in the game, and you can get in the game, and you can drive in the game, and that you can use in the game. And I'm going to take a look at each of these in turn in terms of its own particular nuances. I'm going to have a look at the interior, the exterior, various other bits and pieces about them. Going to have a look at the capacity of the cargo hold, or the boot, the trunk, whatever you want to call it, and talk about some of the drivability of some of the various vehicles, some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the ins and outs. We're then going to move on to some of the basics of getting the cars assembled, the various other bits and pieces that you need to assemble the vehicles, and putting those on and taking them off and making sure that they're all functional. We'll then talk about some of the basic repairs, because vehicles do get damaged, and when you pick up parts they're not always in the best of condition, and what that means when you're putting your vehicles together. We'll then go on to some of the other elements in terms of securing various bits and pieces on your vehicles, because if people see a vehicle they can very well come along and steal bits of it if they're not secured. That much is true. And then in the latter part of this technical series we're going to be having a look at some of the advanced bits and pieces of vehicle care and vehicle maintenance, such as charging batteries one way or another. So before we get started, how do you know if you can use a vehicle or not? There's plenty of vehicles lying around. There's plenty of Gunters all over the map. That doesn't necessarily mean you can drive one. Same with the Ada, same with the Olga, etc. Well, let's take perhaps the Olga for a start. If you actually look at this vehicle from a distance, and it may not come with all its doors on it, it may come with bits and pieces missing, but when you see a drivable vehicle from a distance, you will almost certainly notice it has an awful lot finer detail. One of the other key giveaways is usually the wheels. Either the wheels will be in very good condition, like this, or like that, or they'll be missing. Wheels that look really trashed and destroyed are usually not on a car that you can drive. So this is what a vehicle looks like, one that you can drive, and I'm going to show you some slides for vehicles that you can't drive. So now that you can tell the difference from a distance, what about when you get up close? Well, there's a couple of things about when you get up close to one of these vehicles that are a bit of a dead giveaway, and it's the engine blocks. This is an Olga. The Sarka engine block is in the back. Hummer. The lovely truck. Gunter. And the Ada. One of the big things is detail. There's an awful lot more detail, it's an awful lot more crisp, it looks an awful lot more new. Trash car engine blocks do not look like this. Finally, one of the key takeaways is, if you're not sure, open your inventory. A vehicle that is usable will show up here on the left with all of these bits and pieces. It'll show up with the engine, it'll show up with the body, it'll show up with the chassis, it'll show up with whatever the possible constituents of the boot are, and that's one of the final giveaways, and that is how you can spot one of these usable vehicles from a vehicle that is absolutely not usable. So once you've picked a vehicle, you've found a vehicle, you see a vehicle, What have you got the choices of? Well, let's start with the odd sheep in the family. This is the Sarka. The Sarka is the only rear engine drive car that you'll run across. It's got this tiny little engine in the back, doesn't look much bigger than the kind of a 2-stroke engine. It's 4-door, so if you are with company and you do have a number of people, you can fit people in the back. I can get in the back, I can sit in, not a drama, doesn't look too bad. Room over here as well, and I can get out. It's got a fully functioning passenger seat, fully functioning driver's seat, and it's got a capacity for a spare wheel in the front, and also it has capacity here. There's a couple of doors and things in here, but it has a capacity of 300. Overall, not a bad little vehicle, I would say. Interior from the driver's position, you've got all your dials in front of you. You've got all the various bits and pieces that you can quite clearly see when you're driving, and that's pretty useful. That's pretty handy. You can see that it's desperately trying to move. When you get into these vehicles, they do tend to roll and do various bits and pieces. We'll talk about controls and basic driving after we've had a look at each of the individual vehicles. So yeah, not too bad. Good visibility. Close the door. Good all-round visibility, really. Nice little car. I don't mind it. Switch around to the Olga. Lovely car. Nearly always comes in maroon, I think. Certainly the only ones I've ever driven have been maroon. Very much a kind of very classic car. It's got the old leather seats. It's got this lovely interior. It's something like something from the 1950s, isn't it? Very nice. Let's have a look at the driver's position. Yes, look at that. Very classic. Uberia, or whatever it says in the front. Very nice, very nice. Visibility's not quite as good. I find this thing gets in the way. I mean, the doors are not bad, but you've got this chrome and various bits and pieces, so probably not got the same, I would say, all-round visibility, and I find you lose a bit at the top, so you lose a bit of the view. It's also, I'd have to say with this particularly, I don't know if it's all of them, and particularly the Olga, but I found the Olga you get a lot of glare off the window at certain times of the day, or off the windscreen at certain times of the day. Nice big engine, obviously big engine block, that gives it quite a bit of power. Right down the back here we've got a spare wheel, and it's got a capacity of 400, so it's got a bigger capacity, and of course it does. Look at the size of it. It's a yacht. This is definitely a yacht, and it handles like a yacht. It wallows around, it's very loose on the suspension, it bobs up and down a lot, bottoms out. It's not bad. I've done an awful lot of Ks in an Olga, spun them out a few times, crashed them a few times, but all in all, fairly reliable. Move on to this this crazy little coconut. This is the Ada. Now, it calls itself a 4x4. I honestly haven't noticed much difference. It's perhaps a little bit more stable on the grass than the likes of the Olga, which is obviously, if you look at the road tires, it's obviously got slicker road tires. The Sarka is the same, it's a bit twitchy on the grass. So the Ada is not too bad on the grass, but I wouldn't take the 4x4 too seriously. It's not really something that's going to be doing an awful lot of off-road bashing, if that's your kind of thing. Now, the other thing is, obviously, this is a 4-door with room for 5. That's a 4-door with room for 5. I think you can fit 5 people. No, 4 people. And this is only a 2-door. So when you get in, there's definitely only room for 2 people in here. With the seats the way they are. If you want to get people in the back, you can. You have to flip the seat. Now, the thing is with that, obviously, is if you get in the back, you are in the back, right? You are in the back. Yeah, I can adjust the seat myself, but I don't have a door. So, and always the perils with being in a 2-door car, right? You've always got these issues with, well, that's great, you can fit 4 people in, but it's a bit of a snug squeeze, right? Bit of a snug squeeze. Down here, it's a little bit more basic in front. The hand position gets in the way of a number of the dials, but to be honest, you're probably going to be watching the dials on the bottom left anyway, unless you're going for kind of full immersion. Obviously, again, you can see here we've got issues with this windscreen being pretty filthy, but you've got some glare, various other bits and pieces on here. With the windows, and if any of the windows are cracked, when you pick them up, you end up with this situation, which makes it pretty dreadful to see out of, you'd have to say. You'd probably be better off getting rid of the door, to be honest. We'll talk about sort of protection from shooting later, but you probably want good visibility more than anything. In the back, 300 capacity, so again, same as the Circa, small boot capacity. It is a small vehicle, doesn't have a vast amount of space. Yeah, I've driven one around for a bit. I've rolled them. They don't seem very stable. They're very top heavy. They don't stick to the ground like perhaps the way the Olga does. So this, yeah, 4x4 maybe, but easy to roll. So I'd kind of watch out for those if I were you. Now this little fella over here, we're talking about the Gunter over here. It's not too bad. Similar looking engine in terms of size to the Olga. Again, you've got all 4 functioning doors, which is fantastic. Going to kind of profile at the back. It's definitely your sort of late teenagers, early tweens first car, right? Is what you call this, right? Probably pimped out a little bit too much. In terms of driving, at least you can kind of see all the dials from where you are sitting in here. Not too bad. I mean, it's definitely a throwback to the 1980s, if you ask me. It's like similar to cars that me and my friends first got when we were first driving. So, you know, there you go. Not too bad visibility wise. You've only got this one pillar here. You got this large area here with this window at the back. You know, you got this at the front. You don't lose too much. This is a big pillar, so it does kind of get in the way, but it depends how you drive. You can drive in third person. We'll talk about that when we take one of them out for a little spin. But you know, overall not too bad. A little bit twitchy. Some of the smaller cars are a little bit twitchy, but I find them all a bit twitchy. I mean, you can see from the tires here, this is definitely a road car. Don't try and do too much on the grass. There are differences in traction between the different types of road and the grass, so it's definitely something to watch out for. And that's basically the road cars. So you've got all 4 road cars there: the Gunter, the Ada, the Olga, the Sarker, you know, and you've got a 300, a 400, a 300, and a 300. So the bigger capacity is obviously the Olga. It's not bad. Does wallow around a bit. Does get up to speed. I mean, they all do get up to speed. I've had probably all of them up to at least 100 k's. Starts to get very twitchy at 100 k's, obviously, but you can get them up to 100 k's and they can bum along on a straight bit of road. So I wouldn't fret too much about that. Now then, we have these two, which are the 2 military vehicles. These are very different. You've got the Hummer, which is obviously one purpose, and you've got the truck, which is another. We'll leave the truck to last and talk about that separately. But this is the Hummer, and this is obviously, I guess, one of the more desirable vehicles on here. You've got 4 very classic doors. You've got very clearly these 4 positions. Now, obviously, the thing to note with these positions is once you get in here, oh, we'll get in there. The changing seat's a little bit weird. You can do it. I don't really think you should be able to do it because you kind of like morph over, whereas the other ones you slide across. So you've got this obviously huge body piece here, which is, I guess, part of the armoring for the engine or whatever. But it's a bit of a weird transition if you're getting into that, but you can do it. It is possible. In terms of the driver's side view, it's a military vehicle. It's meant to be a military vehicle. It's all very functional more than anything. You've obviously got this top hatch, which is not used as part of this game, but the visibility is what the visibility is. It's armored, partially armored. It will eventually let bullets through it, but it is the only technically armored vehicle in the game. So that'll save you, I guess, from a number of things. But the visibility is obviously limited, like most military vehicles. Visibility is not the key if armor is the key. You've got this monstrous great big engine, and you've got this monstrous boot. 300. So same as the car. Still got the biggest capacity of all the cars. Even this thing has only got room for 300. But you know, there you go. The obvious difference with this, which you may or may not have immediately noticed, is there's no radiator. So we need a plug and we need a battery, and we'll talk about the different things in that. But if you go over here to the Sarka, radiator is down here. In this case, the radiator is at the front of the car, right there. You got the radiator here in the engine. You got the radiator here in the engine. You got the radiator here in the engine. Over here, ain't got no radiator anywhere. So that's a very big plus for this vehicle, because you do not need to worry about getting radiators, breaking radiators, filling radiators up with water. It's definitely a key, and it's definitely one of the benefits. Nice, great big chunky tires. Functions okay on grass, functions okay on road, functions okay on the dirt roads. This is probably the vehicle that most people want. To be honest, overall, probably the most stable and solid to drive, I would say, out of all of the cars. But if you're really, really hankering for that capacity, then you'd need to go with an Olga. Anyway, not a bad vehicle. It is rather large though, just be aware of that. It is rather large. You got to watch out for some of those tight squeezes. You do not want to get it stuck. Very nice. Right, and now we have this thing, which is the truck, which is a very different kind of beast, really, in terms of what it's got. And you've got this engine here at the front. All it has is a truck battery. It doesn't have a plug at all. Any kind of plug, not a glow plug, not a spark plug. Doesn't have a radiator. But it does have a specialist battery, so you absolutely have to get the truck battery. In case you're wondering, the truck battery's over here, but we'll talk about each of them in turn as we go through. Obviously the biggest thing with this is the capacity. We'll get to that in a minute. Only takes 2, so you've definitely only got 2 people that can get in here. It's got these what they used to call suicide doors back in the day. It's a truck. Okay, looks like a truck. That's what it is. It's a truck. It's obviously got a top hatch there for military purposes and everything else. But you know, if I think the dial's wishful, 80 Ks. I'd say you're probably lucky to get 60 out of it, to be honest. And that's on a straight. It really doesn't handle very well at all. There's been quite a few complaints about just exactly how powerful this thing is, and it occasionally does get stuck on hills and various other bits and pieces. So it's probably not nearly as strong as it could be or should be from that regard. However, in terms of capacity, ignore my bags here, in terms of capacity here, it deals with things in a slightly different way. You've got room for 600 in the back as a capacity, but you also have these additional things here. You've got room in here specifically for wooden logs, specifically for planks, and specifically for metal sheets. That is completely separate to any other cargo. That's a lot. That's like 33. Each plank is what, 4 or something, and each sheet is, I can't remember, 10 or something. So that's a lot of carry capacity for base building materials. This is a base vehicle. This is the vehicle that you want if you're building a base. You can then in the back you can add containers. 1, 2, 3, 4 barrels and 4 crates, and they're also separate to the 600 capacity. So you can see here, this barrel is in here. If I wanted to take, what have I dropped on the ground here? If I wanted to take this helmet, no, because it's got something on it. Let's take this balaclava. I can drop this balaclava in this barrel, or I can drop it in the back. Either or, doesn't matter. So yeah, it's It's got a vast amount of capacity, but it's an absolute dinosaur to drive. It really, really is. It's absolutely very, very dreadful. But there you go. That's the vehicles. That's the types of vehicles. That's all the vehicles you're going to get. This is a workhorse. This is a great all-round workhorse. And these are your regular cars and the various other bits and pieces that you need to bring along. Right, so let's talk about what makes up the elements of a car, shall we? So let's start by having a look at this old Gunter. Around battery, around the front. Spark plugs I always find very hard to find, so you just put them in your hand. And radiator. Talk about the radiator in a second. Right. So, here you go. Let's in fact do this as well. Right. Joyrider's nightmare. So this is a basic chassis. This is the car. If you have a look at it, nothing in the engine, nothing on the body, nothing on the chassis. There's an old door in the boot. All right. So you're probably not likely to find a car in as bad a condition as this, but you might find a car somewhere between that condition and this condition, which is to say you're going to need to go and find some parts. What parts are you going to need to find? Well, it's entirely up to you what parts you need to find. I'll cover the minimum that you need to find to get it absolutely rolling, and then you can talk about the cosmetic stuff after that. A couple of things you're absolutely going to need to get it rolling are wheels, right? And you're going to need I think there is a possibility that you can drive on 3, but it's super inadvisable unless you're going a very, very short distance. So what you need to do is you need to find the wheels. And what you'll note is they all have individual wheels. That says it's an Ada wheel. This says it's an Olga wheel. This says it's a Sarka wheel. That's a Hummer. That's it. You absolutely need to find the wheels that fit with the vehicle. Once you have found a wheel, you will see that some of these wheels are not so bad. This is a 36. If you have a big enough bag, say you've got a field backpack, you can carry 2 of these, 2 36s. So that's, what is that, 72? So you could carry 2 of these in a field backpack, which wouldn't be too bad, really. That's not too bad. Carry them around, no drama. Let's have a look at, for example, a Hummer wheel. 100. You are not carrying that around. You are simply not carrying that around. Won't fit in any container. You want to get a Hummer together, you're going to probably already need another vehicle to find all the parts to put your Hummer together. So you can put your wheels on very simply, just wander around, just find the spot and attach them. The vehicle will roll slightly, don't panic. Right, so now you've got a rolling chassis, as you might say, but this isn't going to get you anywhere. What else do you need? Well, you need to address the elements of the engine. So what do we need in the engine? Well, we're going to need a battery. So find yourself a battery. This one's not in super condition in terms of its chargeability. We're down here at the bottom. It will work and it will run, and that's fine. But that's just something you need to know about. Don't worry about the the wire thing at the bottom. We'll talk about that later. Battery in this goes here. You just look to attach. Alternatively, if you don't want to, drop it on the ground and you can drag it in. Same thing. So the car battery is here on this car. On this car, it's here. On the Olga, it is also here at the back. On the Sarka, you gotta go around to the back, and it's there. On the Hummer, it's a bit hard to see perhaps, but it is right in there, sitting in that tray. And on the truck, it's over here, under here. So that's where the various batteries go. Everything needs a battery. So you need a battery for everything. You aren't getting out of this without that. So you do need a battery. You absolutely do need a battery. For the cars, what you also need is a spark plug. So I got the spark plug that we took out here, which is fine. Now the spark plugs, trying to find the spark plugs on these cars is kind of tricky. They're all slightly different. So you can see that it twitches in. It's there. Now, why it's there? It's on the side of the engine block right there. It's the same with these. You can see it actually sticking up out of the side of the engine block right there. You can see it here sticking up out of the side of the engine block right there. This one down here, a little bit different, but also the same, sticking up out of the side of the engine block. This one requires a glow plug, which is just even worse to try and see, and this one doesn't have anything. So you can see that we're looking for here on the side of the engine block. There it goes, right there. Because I don't know if you've noticed, look at this engine. Look at that engine. And look at that engine. They're essentially the same. So these three engines look exactly the same. So once you've figured out where to put things on one, other than the batteries are different. Obviously, I've just been through that. But you've got the battery in this one and the battery in this one are the same. The battery in this one is out front, which is different, which will matter to you. And the battery on there is down at the back. So we've fitted that together. We now need a radiator. This is what radiators look like. You will have seen car radiators lying around the place. Once again, you can pick it up, and radiators go in the front of the car. You just need to find it. You need to find the sweet spot to attach it, and then you can attach it, and it goes into the car. And then you can look, and you can see, yes, we have battery, we have radiator, we have spark plug. This is the minimum you need to get a car going. Ignore all the bodywork. This is it. If you have this, you can drive, you can go anywhere. It's no great shakes, it's no great drama. You can absolutely go and do whatever you want. However, there's a couple of things to note. You've just put a radiator in. That's part of a water cooling system. You need to fill that up with water. As it happens, I have some water over here in the back of my Olga. I think it's this one. Yeah. So we've got a jerry can of water. You can fill these up at any water station. You can fill a jerry can up for a car anywhere. Obviously, cars don't get sick. They don't get food poisoning. It doesn't matter to them. So any water at all, any creek, any stream, the sea, it absolutely doesn't matter. But you do need to fill up the radiator. The dial in the middle is how much water needs to go into the radiator. The one down at the bottom left is the jerry can. They do take a fair amount of water. These jerry cans, pardon me, they don't give you a literage, but out of one full jerry can, I would say that's probably 3 car radiators worth. It's quite a lot. If you want to do this with, like a canteen or something, where's my canteen? Oh, it's in my other bag. But if you want to do it with a canteen or something, you're going to be going backwards and forwards quite a few times to get this filled up. I don't know exactly how many times, sorry, but be prepared to do it at least, 8 or 10 times to fill this thing up, because a small canteen doesn't carry nearly as much as a jerry can. So you very much want to make sure you've got a jerry can. So there you go. You've now filled that up with water. That's great. You've got spark plug. You've got the battery. You've got a rolling chassis. There's one last thing to check when you actually get in, and that is the fuel. So if you look at the dials down at the bottom left, you have kilometers per hour. For me, you can set it for miles per hour in game settings, but for where I come, everything is kilometers per hour, so it makes sense for me. And the petrol gauge is obviously there, full on this little car, so that's great. Don't need to fill it up, but I'll show you where you fill it up if you do want to fill it up. You've got the gear and the rev counter on the right, and you've got engine temperature down at the very bottom. So this one has fuel. If it didn't have fuel, what you would want to do is you would want to find the fuel cap. Now on this car it's right here where it says fuel tank. So basically, once again, I have a jerry can pre-prepared with some gasoline in it. There you go. This is the gasoline. I do believe they call it gasoline. So what you would do is you would bring your gasoline. As far as I know, you can only fill a jerry can with gasoline. I've never tried to fill a bottle with gasoline. And you would do to the fuel, and it would say fill. The Sarka, I think, needs some fuel. Let's have a look. It's right there. You see it says refuel. So we can absolutely refuel this. For some reason it's having a bit of an issue with that. I guess it must be full, is what it's telling me. Or it's got some kind of a glitch going on because it doesn't want to fill up. Let's check the Hummer. On this side with the Hummer. There we go, that's better. So once again, you get the same dial in the center going around for gasoline. The Hummer takes an awful lot of juice. Most of the cars will take, I think, more than one jerry can, but again, don't quote me on that. But if you're going to have a vehicle, you're probably going to want at least one jerry can in the boot. You can always swap between the two. You can tip the fuel out and replace it with water. You can tip the water out and replace it with fuel as and when you need it. But you should probably always have one if you've got a vehicle. Now, once you've got this sorted and you get in, my advice is for certainly the controls, you can check on the controls side of things. I've got a little bit of a roll going here, so I'm just going to get out. We'll talk about the controls before we roll off anywhere. Stop rolling. If you go and have a look at your controls, you'll see as you move along there's a vehicle one. You got brake, hold, which is L2. You've got horn, which is L3, steer, which is your left stick. You've got R2 for accelerating, R1 for handbrake, if you want a handbrake. And you got lights, gear up, gear down, and look. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple as far as I know. Anyway, seems to work pretty well. So I would say when you get in, I'd always put my foot on the brake. That's L2. This is in reverse. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to switch it into neutral. Start the engine is R2. And we're rocking and rolling. The engine is working, everything's going pretty good. That's not too bad. We'll just stop for now and get out. So that means you've got a fully functioning car. So we could take that, we could drive it off, you could do whatever you want, you could run all over the place, and you would have a fully functioning car, and that would be absolutely no drama. However, you may then decide that you want to tart it up a little bit. So you want to go around, you want to find body panel parts and various other bits and pieces. So there's a couple of things to note. Thank you. There's a couple of things to note. The first is the doors are very specific. So this is a Gunter front right. This is a Gunter rear right. This is a Gunter rear left and a Gunter front left. And it's the same with all of them. There's no interchangeability. You need the very part that you need for the very bit that you need it for. Now when you pick these suckers up, you can't see toffee. I often find that I tend to use third person when I'm carrying this stuff around, because otherwise it's so hard to try and do stuff. And I know, you know, the full immersion people and the purists will say, oh, you know, that's cheating, can't do that in real life. It's like, yeah, I know I can't do that in real life, but then I've got better peripheral vision in real life, and I can do things like, move this to the side of my body and look sideways. I can't do that here. So the limitations of the game mean I don't have a problem with that. Obviously, you're attaching the door to the front of the frame, so you attach it to the front of the frame. Same with this. Attach it to the front of the frame, just right there. And then we've got these back doors. You've got the rear left. Attach it there. Rear right. Attach it there. And same with the trunk, as they're calling it. So you've got a trunk door. You attach that at the top. And you got the bonnet, or the hood, as they call it, depending on where you are. That attaches just at the sort of the side up here. There you go. Sweet spot. And then you've got all the bits and pieces. You can chuck this down, chuck that down, and chuck all these shut, and you now have yourself a functional little vehicle, which is great, isn't it? I mean, fantastic little thing. Now, this one's quite lucky because you have all these windows in really, really good condition, which is awesome. You want that. Maybe not so much for the boot, because you can't fix the windows, right? Body parts. It's interesting. The body parts themselves can be repaired to a better standard, but they will still look as bad as they looked when you first got them. So this one came off in a vehicle in good condition, which is why it looks in good condition. While this is also green, this is also green, but it looks worse because when it came off, it wasn't in such good condition. And you know, and they use effects and things, so some of them are meant to look a bit more bashed up, because you know, some of them might look a bit more new. But you can't repair the glass. So for the likes of, which was the one with this? So this, the circuit with the smashed up glass in the door, yeah, it's always going to be a problem seeing out that door. Whereas not so for this. Wasn't there one of these that was, I thought it was this one when he got in, it was all bashed up. I guess not. So there you go. So that's your vehicle. That's your vehicle ready to go. That's your vehicle ready to roll. Look after it, take care of it, do all the good things that you're going to do with it, because that's the vehicle that you're going to have. That's the vehicle that you're going to drive. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take it out for a little spin down the road, and I'll just cover some of the basics of moving and turning and traveling and everything else, and I'll see you all in a minute. Right, well here we are on the highway, and we're ready to go. Now, I'll do both first and third person. Again, depends on you in terms of preference and a number of various other bits and pieces, and I'm not going to say it's right to do it one way or the other. But I'm going to put my foot on the brake. I've got it in neutral. I'm going to hit start. Now, you saw there, maybe you didn't. I'll do it again. When you start the engine, the rev counter goes all the way up, and just it hits the red, and the engine shape briefly appears. I'll do it again. Watch. There you go. That means that the engine just takes a little bit of damage every time you start. You can break your engine, and when your engine is broken, i.e. ruined, the whole car is kaputski. So do not, under any circumstances, wreck your engine. As your car progresses through damage, you will see the engine indicator will come up yellow, and then it will go darker yellow, and then it will go red, and as soon as it goes red, you're in trouble. Yeah, keep an eye on that. If you've got an engine indicator at all permanently displayed on your vehicle, you want to probably get out and repair it, and we'll cover repairing in the next episode. The other thing is the temperature dial on the bottom. If the temperature dial starts rising, you've probably damaged your radiator beyond repair, and you need to go and have a little conversation with your radiator about that. But let's get into first. Luckily on PlayStation it's automatic, so you just, away you go. Now you do want to make sure you change gear before you get that engine coming up. So the gear changes are pretty straightforward. Circle on PlayStation takes you up, and X takes you down, and you can carry on just down the road cruising as much as you want. I'm doing 80 at the minute because this is a nice flat stretch of road, but do be careful. There's a couple of reasons to be careful. The first is these vehicles don't handle very well. This is not Gran Turismo, and if you slide off the road and hit a tree, you will probably knacker the radiator, which means you're going to need a new radiator, and that's part of the drama. So definitely when things like this corner are coming up, just brake, just take it easy. You've probably gone to a lot of trouble to get this vehicle. It would be really remiss of you to knacker it so simply. Stopping, just brake. You can go down the gears if you want. You don't need to. You can pull over, head it into neutral, stop the engine, get out of the vehicle. It's that simple. That's driving. I'd say do it. I'd say do it and have fun. Go and check it out. Don't be surprised if the first vehicle you get you trash pretty quickly. The other thing is with the way that the game works in terms of the server and various other bits and pieces, the issue is that sometimes you get periods of lag, and those periods of lag, we'll do it in third person, those periods of lag can be problematic when it comes to driving, and you'll be driving along minding your own business, and then suddenly it's a bit noisy out there, suddenly everything will freeze solid, and you'll be like, what's going on? And before you know it, you'll come back and be in the middle of a tree somewhere, and you'll have knackered your car. Sorry about that, but it's happened to all of us. So there you go, that's driving. Like I said, take it easy. It is a bit twitchy, so just, be aware that you can spin them out, you can roll them, you can flip them, you can do various bits and pieces. One of the things that they brought in is that if it does get stuck for any reason whatsoever, just turn it off, and you get out, you now have the option to push the vehicle. I think, is it from the front? Does it have to be stuck? It might have to be stuck for you to do it, and I don't want to get my vehicle stuck. So you can actually get out now, and you get the option to push the vehicle. So when you come up to it, if it is stuck, it'll say push, and you can push it, which is fantastic. Previously you couldn't do that, which is awesome. And I think you can push it from either the front or the back, but you can't push it sideways. Okay, nice little car. Right, so there you are. That's all the cars. That's all the things you need to know about cars. There's just a couple of things I just want to close up on before we end this one. And that's the location of spare tires. This doesn't have a spare tire. They're usually in the boot. The spare tire on this one is actually up here, which is fine. You can actually, that's where it is. You can take it to your hands. You can change the spare tire. Spare tire on the Olga fits in the boot. The spare tire on the Sarka fits in the boot, which is the front. The spare tire on the Hummer is chucked in the boot. Now these are quite tricky. The first time I was looking for the spare tires on these, I was like, where in the heck are they? But the eagle-eyed of you will notice that they're right here. There's a thing here that says manipulate, and that actually drops this down, and the spare tires are hidden back here. You can't access the spare tires. You can't even access the spare tires from here without actually coming in here and manipulating this. So if you are looking for spare tires on this, there's two of them. There's one over there, and there's one over there on this side, and that's what you need to do. You need to hit manipulate, close that door. You hit manipulate, and then you need to pick out your tires, and that's the place for them to be. So there you go, that's the end of the introduction into the cars. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a touch of these various bits and pieces. Just be aware that these vehicles they're nearly always completely damageable. Which is to say, everything can be damaged. The wheels can be damaged, the radiator, the engine, the batteries, the spark plugs, the bonnets, the boots, the doors, the glass. Everything can be damaged. And the problem that poses to you if you crash it, if you roll it, if there's gunfire involved, if there's explosions, you run over a landmine or an IED, or any of those kinds of bits and pieces, someone throws a grenade inside the car, any of those kinds of things that go on and go about in the DayZ game will damage your vehicle. Now, there are some things you can do about damages to vehicle, and those are the kind of things we're going to be covering in the next episode. How do you repair these things? How do you fix these things? And how do you prevent people from stealing bits and pieces? You've just seen me disassemble this entire car, and it takes no time at all. If I had another car or a truck, I could come up, disassemble your car, pack it all into my truck and drive off, and you'd be left with nothing. How do you stop that from happening? We'll cover that next time. Thank you very much. Please drop a like, please subscribe to the channel, and please stay tuned for the next in this series of technical DayZ for vehicles. PlayStation